Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our webinar, Welcome to the Workshop, Perforce for Open Source Development. Today we're lucky to have Matt Attaway, Director of Community Development and creator of the Perforce Workshop, presenting for us. We'll save about 5 to 10 minutes at the end for questions, so please send your questions via the chat widget. You can also send any technical difficulties through that same chat function. Also note that we'll be sending a link to the recording to all registrants by the end of the week, so keep an eye out for that. And with that, I am happy to introduce our presenter. Matt Attaway is a 12-year veteran of Perforce, and he's currently serving as Director of Community Development, but he's been part of the QA, development, tech support, and R&D teams. And right now he's working on the workshop amongst some other projects. So let's jump right in. Over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Natalie. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today to talk about the workshop. As Natalie said, my name is Matt Attaway. There we go. Slides are working. Always exciting to see. My name is Matt Attaway. Been here for way too long at this point, and I'm excited to talk today about the workshop. It's something I've been wanting to work on for years and years here at Perforce, and just in the last year we've been able to bring it to life, and that's very, very exciting. For all my talks, I like to have a shortcut. You know, a lot of times the important link is the very last thing at the very last slide, and you're just waiting for that slide. So if you just want to get straight to the workshop, here you go, workshop.perforce.com. So in today's talk, we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about what the workshop is. We're going to do just a basic tour around the workshop to show you what's available and what projects are out there. And then we're going to talk about the open source roadmap here at Perforce. So what is the workshop? It is a really nice logo. Look at that logo, big and geary. No, the Perforce Workshop is a Perforce-powered home for open source projects. Now, if you've been in the Perforce community for a long time, you might be familiar with something called the Public Depot. And the workshop is really just an evolution of that original Public Depot. In both cases, these were Perforce servers that were accessible to anyone in the community to come out and share and collaborate on different source projects and code. As I said, it is Perforce powered, so it's showing the best of what Perforce has to offer. At its heart is, of course, a Perforce server, workshop.perforce.com:1666. Now, we needed something to be able to let people talk about their projects and surface their projects. And back in with the Public Depot, we used a wiki to do all that. But it was always a little rough, and it didn't make it easy to collaborate on the actual code. So with the advent of Swarm added to the Perforce stable of products, we've been able to take that and repurpose it to use it as the front end for the entire workshop. So we're very thankful to the Swarm team that they came along and built such a great front end for us. And coming soon, it's not quite out yet, but we're going to get this set up in just the next couple of weeks here, hopefully, is going to be Git Fusion. So you'll be able to use either Perforce or Git to work on any of the projects that are hosted in the Perforce Workshop. Now, the workshop, you will definitely see that there's a bias towards Perforce-focused projects, but it's available for anyone to use for any open source project. So there's some people who host some hardware projects out there. There's a couple of screensavers and a couple games as well. So certainly, we are using it to store all of the work that we want to share with the community, and we want it to be a central place where everyone in the Perforce community knows they can come to find great Perforce-powered tools. But if there's anything that you would like to host in an open source fashion using Perforce, we would love to have your code. So with that said, I want to dive straight into a tour. All right, bringing up the live stream here. Now, theoretically now, you should see that we are at workshop.perforce.com. It's buffering a little bit. There we go. So this is the kind of the home page, the landing page for the workshop. And what we're trying to do here is we want to surface a lot of the active projects that are happening. A number of these are driven by Perforce developers, such as Paul Allen, who you'll see here in the middle of the screen. But we also have a lot of community members who have stepped up to share their own projects or to work on things that we've shared, put out there. So on this front page, you can see some of the projects we want to highlight across the top, recent projects on the right-hand side that have been active. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see on the left there's just an activity feed, so you can see at a glance who's been active on what. and some basic information about joining the workshop and contributing to it. Now, if you're familiar with Swarm, you'll note this looks like nothing you've ever seen in Swarm before. So this is actually an extension that we built in the community team to help pull Swarm into a slightly different direction. Swarm is a fantastic collaboration tool, but it was meant for working behind the firewall, not working out in the open as an open source portal. So there's been a lot of work that we've had to do to stretch it and bend it to meet our needs. The great thing is all of those modules are going to be open sourced and will be completely available to you. We've gone through a lot of effort to design them such that they can mostly just be dropped into place on any Swarm installation and they'll work. So all of this stuff that you see here, this front page, we have a whole system for setting up account creation and doing password resets automatically. All that is handled by Swarm, and all that will be available to you out here in the workshop. So let's pop into the Projects tab here at the top. Now, if you're familiar with Swarm, this will probably look a little bit more familiar. This is the normal front page for Swarm installation. So again, we can see the projects here on the left, all the projects in the system, and on the right is an activity feed of everything that's going on in the system. Now, I don't want to give too much of a Swarm demo here, but I do want to give you a sense of what's available to you as far as functionality as a workshop user. If you want to follow a particular project, you can go in and click on, say, our good friend P4Win here. And if you were signed in, you would be able to follow this project and get notifications when there's activity on that project. Oh, wait, we're so sorry. The stream is still popping over into P4Win here. Let's see. Let's pop back out. All right, there we go. Now it's in showing P4Win. So you can see for any given project, you can see a dedicated activity stream. You can see information about that project. You can follow it for more information. And for any of these things, you can get an RSS feed. So if you would rather get an RSS feed of information and activity, you can get that as well. Across the top as well, I'm not going to click through it because we're lagging a little bit here, but you can browse through all the files that are in the system as well. So you can browse through by user and project to see what files are available and grab anything that's available for you. Certainly, the easiest way to get access to these projects is to create an account and then use a Perforce client such as P4V to connect to the server, and then you can sync down and work on any content that you would like. All right. So we're going to bounce out of the demo here. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is the open source roadmap here at Perforce. This rotates around the workshop to some extent because everything that we look to open source these days, we are pushing out to the workshop so that people can access it. Perforce has always, for being a closed source company, we've always been big champions of open source software. Certainly, one of the first things we ever produced was Jam, just another make tool, and that was open source in 1995, well before there was really a concept of open source in some ways. And then we've always had free licenses for open source development as well, so people could run their own Perforce servers to run their own projects. But we here at Perforce have been trying to open up a little bit more as well. So historically, we've had a number of open source projects that were shipped via the FTP site. So you could go and get the source file or source files for P4 Python or the .NET API. And that is going to continue to be true, but we'd like to open that up a bit more. So available today out here on the workshop, we have a number of tools. First of all the derived APIs, as we call them. So they're all the C++ APIs that have some other language binding for them. So Perl, PHP, Ruby, Python, and the .NET APIs are all available in source form out in the workshop so you can extend them and work with them. Similarly, P4Ant and P4 Maven are available out in the workshop. And actually, I have to give a shout out to one of our community members, Dan Tran, who's been doing an immense amount of work on P4 Maven recently to help it fit better into the modern Maven world. He's a sterling example of what we can accomplish by providing all this source to you folks, and we all benefit from that, which I think is fantastic. One of the most exciting things recently was that we finally open sourced both the Perforce command line and the P4 API. So we've always provided a compiled version of the API and a very simple sample command line as part of that bundle. But in June, we actually open sourced the full Perforce API and the full command line, which actually you'll see is not a whole lot. It's mostly the API that does the heavy lifting. So that's already been hugely useful for the community at large. There's a number of people who are operating on odd platforms that are hard for us to get copies of or build machines for to build against, and so they're able to do their own builds now. And there's even some people who have very odd requirements for their workflows and have gone through and disabled file locking in interesting ways to get around Linux or problems with their Linux variation. So I'm personally excited. This was a big step for Perforce as a whole to let go of that much code, especially so close to our core product. But I think it's going to be fantastic for everyone. Similarly, we've open sourced two very important clients. So P4 Web is probably, in many ways, our most used client. I can't think of a company that doesn't have a P4 Web deployed somewhere so that people can pass around links. So being able to get that out there so folks can customize and integrate it more tightly with their toolchain, I think is going to be immensely useful. And that's available today and has been since April. And that our good old favorite P4 Win, those famous running shoes, that was open sourced in May. And people have been jumping on that to extend it in interesting ways. My understanding, I haven't gotten a chance to see the code yet, but I've talked to someone who's actually added stream support and fixed numerous bugs in P4 Win and is going to be sharing it in the coming weeks. And we have a couple of users in the workshop themselves who are extending P4 Win and adding support for things like SSL servers and 64-bit support. So it's really exciting. P4 Win was one of the first projects I ever worked on here at Perforce, so to see it get new life again is wonderful. Also available out there is the P4DTG SDK, so that's our defect tracking gateway software development kit. That used to be kind of hidden behind a license that you had, or a license you had to sign with us to be able to use it and access it to be able to integrate your defect tracker with Perforce jobs. Now, thankfully, that's all available to you with full source code and some great examples of how to get started. Also P4D CTL. This is a P4D manager. It's a long-standing open source project, but this is going to be interesting because it's going to be used in our upcoming Perforce server packages for managing the servers themselves. So you'll see us updating this shortly, and hopefully we can all work together to build a great tool for managing P4D servers. And a new entry into the workshop has been Piper. Now Piper is loosely called P4V for artists. It's a visual client, much like P4V, but much simpler, focused on just the needs for someone who's either an artist or a designer. And it actually came out of our consulting team who built it for our customer, and their designers really loved it, and it integrates well with P4 Search, which if you haven't used P4 Search, it's a tool that allows you to search for content through your whole Perforce server very easily, and it integrates directly into Piper, which is fantastic. So it allowed them to search for files very easily and allowed them to visualize things in a way that was a bit more comfortable for them than something like P4V, which was really meant for software developers. And that is available up on the workshop as well. Now, we have a lot more coming, though. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, our goal is pretty much anything that is a client for Perforce, we really would like to see open sourced. And probably the two most popular requests I see are for P4 Java and P4 Eclipse. These are coming soon, probably in the next 3 to 6 months, as the teams prepare and get ready to figure out how to work in an open source world, because this is very new for them as well. But I think that's going to be a huge win for the community. P4GT as well, that's our graphical tools. So those integrate with Maya and Max and Photoshop. So that will be open sourced shortly. It's actually all prepped and ready to go. I just need to get it out there. The SDP is coming. This is a standard deployment package, which historically was actually a paid piece of software that you got through the consulting team. And I think this is a huge win as someone who uses the SDP on a regular basis to manage the workshop itself. We're going to be open sourcing that whole package so that everyone can take advantage of the scripts and tools that are built into it. So it makes things like offline backups and checkpoints very easy to do and helps you set up your server with all the best practices in place from day one. So that'll be showing up in the next couple months. And the one that I'm excited about as well is P4V. Okay, clearly I'm excited about all these. It's my job to be the open source curator, though, so I guess I should be excited about them all. Coming out probably I would say in the new year it's going to be P4V. I was talking to the development lead about that recently, and they're finally getting to the point where they feel comfortable with the idea of open sourcing that product. So we'll be working with them on the community side of the house to get that out. That has been a much requested item. So if you're looking to get started with the Perforce Workshop, you can just go to workshop.perforce.com and click on that Sign Up button at the top. It's much faster when you're not doing it through a screen sharing application, I guarantee it. From there, you'll be able to go into the application. You can follow projects that are interesting to you. You can comment on changes that are coming in and ask questions of the developers out in the wild. And of course, even better, you can work on the projects yourself, share your changes, share your internal tools. There's a number of fantastic tools out there that I welcome you to explore and look at. One of the ones I'll do a shout out for just because I've been using it a lot recently is the P5 tool, which is a Python wrapper for the Perforce command line, which brings a lot of great functionality to the Perforce command line. So I highly recommend checking that one out. And thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. I'm going to open it up for Q&A now. If you have any questions, just use that chat box down below. All right, a couple questions coming in here. One coming in, so is there a timeline for when these projects are going to be available? And the answer is no. At this point, we're certainly shooting for the majority of them to be out by the end of the year, but we have to slot in the open sourcing process kind of around the release schedule as well. So it kind of comes and goes, and we can't always plan for exactly when they're going to make it out. But if you follow the Perforce blog, we do a lot of announcements out there. It's a great way to see what's going on. Or you can just come out and join the workshop and see what projects are out there. Oh, sorry, just got a message from Natalie. One thing I do want to mention is we will be at the Merge, the Perforce conference, coming up in the next couple of months here, September 17th to the 20th, I'm going to say off the top of my head, probably incorrectly. But you should come out. We will actually be talking about the workshop more and be going through a demo about how to get your stuff into the workshop and demoing some of the better projects that are out there. Another question, so what's the best way to work on a project that is inside of the workshop? There's two ways you can approach it. For one-off changes, what I tend to do is I'll just sync the code down right out of the branch of the other person, and I'll make my change and then I can shelve it. And through Swarm, that will schedule a review so that they can see it and approve it right from inside of Swarm. That's a really great way if you just have a one-off change that you want to have someone take a look at and accept. If you think you're going to be doing more extensive changes, all you need to do is branch that project into your own section of the Perforce Depot, so everyone gets their own section underneath their name. And then you can make any changes you want. And when you're ready to send them back, you do an integrate back into the source branch and flag it for review, and that person can accept your changes that way. So it's pretty painless. There's definitely work we want to do to make that more seamless, but we've seen a lot of success so far, which has been fantastic. All right. And that looks like all the questions. Does anyone have anything else? All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate your time today, and have a great day.